The young and the restless spoilers shock after Nick's miraculous return to Genoa City, a comeback that defied death itself. The city's streets seemed to pulse with both relief and an undercurrent of tension. The fans, electrified by his resurrection and subsequent arrival, had hoped that the return of such a central figure would usher in an era of reconciliation and healing. Many believed that long-standing adversaries Phyllis and Sharon, once locked in a bitter rivalry, might finally set aside their differences to forge a relationship built on mutual respect and cooperation. However, beneath the surface, the embers of old hatreds still burned fiercely. In the aftermath of Nick's reappearance, the complex tapestry of relationships in Genoa City began to unravel with renewed vigor. Sharon, whose heart had weathered many storms, found herself unable to resist the allure of a familiar anchor. Despite the chaos that had marked her recent life, she had clung to the memory of Nick's unwavering care and protection. It wasn't long before she mustered the courage to confess her true feelings, declaring her desire to rekindle the flame that had once warmed her soul. In moments of vulnerability, she recounted how Nick's persistent efforts had been her lifeline during her darkest hours, a beacon of hope in a turbulent sea of betrayal and loss. Yet, amid Sharon's tender confession, another emotion stirred within the walls of Genoa City. Phyllis, whose own complicated history with Nick was equally laden with passion and pain, found herself moved by the man's relentless devotion. Every time Nick reached out or showed even a flicker of care, Phyllis's heart would swell with a mixture of admiration and a possessive longing. For her, Nick was not merely a person but a symbol, a rare gem whose value was immeasurable, one that she believed belonged solely to her. His mere presence had the power to stir old wounds and reignite fires thought long extinguished. The unfolding drama soon escalated into a public spectacle, one that encapsulated the very essence of Genoa City's volatile interpersonal dynamics. Rumors swirled through the corridors of the city's elite, and whispers of a potential reconciliation between Sharon and Phyllis were quickly replaced by anxious speculation over who would ultimately claim Nick's heart. With both women openly vying for his affection, the city became a stage where every interaction was loaded with a mix of desire, regret, and simmering animosity. One evening, beneath the glow of the city lights, tensions reached a boiling point. Sharon and Phyllis found themselves in a private confrontation, a moment that would forever alter the fabric of their intertwined lives. As the conversation began with tentative words and unspoken truths, it rapidly devolved into a fierce battle of accusations and resentments. Sharon, with tears in her eyes yet resolute determination, reiterated her deep-seated love for Nick. She recalled the moments when his presence had shielded her from the storm of life's adversities, when his unwavering loyalty had made her feel secure in a world otherwise filled with chaos. Her voice trembled with sincerity as she spoke of the countless times Nick had been her refuge, even when the world seemed intent on tearing them apart. But Phyllis, unable to remain silent any longer, erupted with a fury that belied the calm facade she often maintained. "You think you can just waltz back into his life and claim him like some lost treasure," she hissed, her voice laced with both bitterness and possessiveness. "Nick has always been mine, even when you dared to believe otherwise. He belongs with me, always has, always will." In the heat of the argument, the intensity of her emotions overcame her self-control, and without warning, she lunged toward Sharon. In a shocking display of raw anger, Phyllis's hands clamped around Sharon's throat, her voice echoing with the conviction of someone convinced that she was the rightful guardian of Nick's love. "You don't deserve him," she spat. "I won't allow you to steal what is mine. Get out of my way." Caught in the middle of this violent emotional tug-of-war, Nick found himself overwhelmed by the weight of the conflict. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched the two women, each representing a different facet of his past and present, tear into each other with words and actions that left no doubt about the depth of their rivalry. Exhaustion etched itself into his features as he struggled to find a foothold in a situation spiraling out of control. The once comforting memories of protection and warmth were now tainted by the discord that both women harbored, leaving him questioning whether love could ever be a sanctuary from the surrounding storm. For Nick, every act of care, every attempt to mediate between the two, now seemed like a double-edged sword. On one hand, his compassion and protective nature had always been his strength, drawing both Sharon and Phyllis into his orbit. On the other hand, it now made him the center of an unyielding contest, one that threatened to dismantle the delicate balance he had fought so hard to maintain. As he stood amid the chaos, his mind raced with conflicting emotions, the joy of his return, the burden of his newfound responsibilities, and the crushing weight of expectations that came with being the object of such fierce devotion. The incident that night became a turning point, a moment when the facade of cooperation crumbled to reveal the raw, unfiltered rivalry beneath. In the days that followed, Genoa City buzzed with speculation and concern. Friends and foes alike whispered about the possibility that the city's most volatile love triangle might lead to irreversible consequences. Some argued that the mutual animosity between Phyllis and Sharon was destined to consume not only their relationship, but also the fragile harmony that had once defined the community. Others believed that Nick, if he could somehow reclaim his strength, might be the one to bridge the gap between them, a unifying force capable of reconciling hearts torn asunder by jealousy and pride. Yet, as the drama unfolded, it became increasingly clear that the resolution would not be as simple as a heartfelt apology or a reconciliatory embrace. The layers of hurt and betrayal ran too deep, and the personal stakes were too high. Both women were driven by a fierce conviction that their love for Nick was not just a fleeting infatuation but an integral part of their identity. Sharon's vulnerability and longing were matched only by Phyllis's fiery determination to claim what she believed was rightfully hers. And in the midst of their clashing wills, Nick remained an enigma, a man whose own desires and fears were as complex as the city he called home. In this tangled web of emotions and loyalties, the battle lines were drawn not just by passion, but by years of shared history and mutual heartbreak. The conflict was not merely about romantic rivalry, it was a struggle for self-identity, a fight to assert one's worth in a world that often seemed indifferent to the scars of the past. As Genoa City watched with bated breath, it became apparent that the outcome of this bitter contest would shape the future of everyone involved. Would Nick find a way to escape the relentless tug-of-war between two women whose love was as destructive as it was deep? Or would the very act of choosing one over the other irrevocably fracture the bonds that held this fractured family together? As the night gave way to the uncertain light of a new dawn, the questions lingered like a persistent shadow. The tale of Nick, Sharon, and Phyllis was far from over. It was evolving into a saga of redemption, rivalry, and the relentless search for peace amid chaos. And while the scars of past conflicts could not be easily erased, there remained a glimmer of hope that through understanding, forgiveness, and the courage to face their own inner demons, healing might one day prevail. In the heart of Genoa City, where drama and destiny danced a delicate ballet, every whispered secret and every tear shed was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The city, with all its grandeur and imperfections, bore witness to a timeless truth, that love, in all its myriad forms, was both a source of immeasurable strength and a catalyst for the most profound conflicts. And as the saga continued to unfold, it was clear that only time would tell whether the wounds inflicted in the heat of passion could ever be mended, or if the cycle of desire and despair would simply be destined to repeat itself in an endless dance of light and shadow. After Nick's miraculous return to Genoa City, and his defiance of death itself, the city was once again thrown into the tumult of its own making. The air was heavy with anticipation, and every heartbeat of the city seemed to echo the dramatic resurgence of a man who had become a symbol of hope and survival. Yet, as much as Nick's presence stirred passions and memories, he found himself at a crossroads where personal affection and public duty collided. In a time when the threat of a dangerous kidnapper loomed over the horizon, Nick's focus had shifted entirely from romantic entanglements to a mission that could save countless lives. Nick now stood as a determined sentinel over the future of Genoa City. His mind was set on capturing the kidnapper who had cast a dark shadow over the community, a shadow that threatened to engulf not just a select few, but everyone. With grim resolve, he declared that every citizen, regardless of their past or station, could fall prey to the emerging menace. In a moment that would redefine the dynamics between him and the two women who had long vied for his affection, Nick's voice rang out clear and commanding. "This isn't the time for personal grievances," he shouted, his tone both firm and anguished. "We are all potential victims here. Instead of fighting over what belongs to the past, we need to stand together for the future." His words struck a chord with both Phyllis and Sharon. For so long, the rivalry between them had been fueled by a complex web of shared history, unspoken grudges, and passionate claims to Nick's love. Yet, as Nick's urgent plea filled the space between them, a sense of clarity began to pierce through the haze of jealousy and rivalry. In that heated moment, both women, each momentarily locked in an embrace of bitter contention, instinctively released their hold on one another. The physical act was mirrored by an emotional release, a realization that their ongoing dispute was not only self-destructive but also a betrayal of the bond they had once forged in the crucible of crisis. Only days before, in the midst of chaos that threatened to tear the fabric of their lives apart, Phyllis and Sharon had found solace in one another's arms. In those harrowing moments, as danger lurked around every corner, they had become each other's lifelines. They had rescued one another, shared tears of despair and hope, and in the silence after the storm, had discovered a profound connection born of mutual understanding and survival. That shared vulnerability had once been their strength, a rare, tender reminder that even in a world defined by relentless rivalry, compassion could flourish. Now, as they stood before Nick, they were forced to confront the painful irony of their current conflict, fighting over love when they had once united to overcome adversity. Nick's admonition resonated deeply with them. Both Phyllis and Sharon, with eyes downcast and hearts heavy with shame, felt the weight of their actions. Their battle for Nick's affection, a contest that had consumed so much of their energy and threatened to leave a trail of destruction in its wake, now appeared petty and misdirected. They were grown women, each with a life shaped by triumphs and tragedies, each having fought battles of their own. The realization that they had let personal ambition override the bond they had shared in moments of mutual peril was both humbling and heartbreaking. In the quiet that followed Nick's forceful intervention, a reflective calm settled over the trio. The echoes of the recent altercations slowly faded, leaving behind the raw honesty of a moment in which each realized the gravity of the larger threat that loomed over their lives. Nick's concern was not for the fluttering of hearts or the spark of romance, it was for the safety and future of everyone in Genoa City. His determination to capture the kidnapper and neutralize the danger underscored a universal truth, that in times of crisis, petty squabbles must be set aside for the greater good. As the city braced itself for what lay ahead, the dynamics between Nick, Phyllis, and Sharon began to shift in subtle yet significant ways. The fierce rivalry that had once defined their interactions now gave way to a cautious, tentative understanding. Both Phyllis and Sharon began to see that their shared past, marked by moments of both intense conflict and unexpected solidarity, could serve as the foundation for a new kind of relationship. One not solely defined by the quest for romantic conquest, but by the recognition that unity was essential when facing the unpredictable challenges of the future. Nick, aware of the fragile balance between personal loss and public duty, dedicated himself fully to the mission at hand. He rallied the people of Genoa City, urging them to come together in the face of a common enemy. With each passing hour, his investigation grew more intense, driven by the haunting possibility that the kidnapper's next move could shatter the semblance of normalcy that the community so desperately clung to. His eyes, once clouded by the complexities of love, now shone with a fierce determination, a determination that reminded everyone that sometimes, the hardest battles are fought not on the front lines of passion, but on the battlegrounds of duty and sacrifice. In a series of tense, adrenaline-fueled nights, Nick worked tirelessly to piece together clues, tracing the footsteps of the elusive kidnapper who had dared to threaten the safety of his community. His every action was a testament to the strength and resilience that had defined his character for years. And as he moved closer to uncovering the truth, he never wavered from his conviction that the safety of Genoa City, and the future of all its inhabitants, was worth every ounce of sacrifice. Meanwhile, the aftermath of the confrontation left Phyllis and Sharon in a reflective silence. The memory of their past, when they had clung to each other in the face of mortal danger, served as a stark reminder of what they could achieve when united by a common cause. The bitterness of their rivalry began to give way to a cautious respect. They realized that their personal vendetta over Nick's affections had distracted them from an even greater mission, the protection of the community they both cherished. In that painful, yet enlightening moment, they vowed to set aside their differences, if only for the duration of the looming crisis. The evolving narrative of Genoa City was a tapestry woven with threads of love, betrayal, duty, and redemption. As Nick, Phyllis, and Sharon each navigated their intertwined fates, it became clear that every individual in the city had a role to play in the unfolding drama. The fierce contest for affection had transformed into a shared responsibility. A collective pledge to stand against the encroaching darkness that threatened to engulf them all. In this transformative period, the characters discovered that true strength lies not in the assertion of personal claims, but in the unity forged through shared adversity. Their journey was a reminder that, while love might ignite passion and conflict, it also held the power to inspire healing and cooperation when faced with a common enemy. As Genoa City braced for the uncertain future, a newfound resolve began to blossom among its inhabitants, a resolve to overcome past rivalries and to build a future where the safety and well-being of all came before personal vendettas. The path ahead was fraught with peril and uncertainty, but with every challenge met, the bonds between its citizens grew stronger. In the midst of danger, even the most fractured relationships could be mended, and even the most bitter foes could become unlikely allies. And as Nick led the charge against the looming threat, the city watched in hope that the unity born of crisis would ultimately pave the way for a new era, one where love, duty, and the courage to stand together reigned supreme over the forces of chaos and division.